Chapter 30 at the Circular Staircase. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ana Sofia Simão de Portugal. The Circular Staircase by Mary Roberts Rinehart. Chapter 30 When Churchyards Yawn. It was on Wednesday Riggs told us the story of his connection with some incidents that had been previously unexplained. Elsie had been gone since the Friday night before, and with the passage of each day I felt that his chances were lessening. I knew well enough that he might be carried thousands of miles in the box car, locked in perhaps, without water or food. I had read of cases where bodies had been found locked in cars on isolated sidings in the West, and my spirits went down with every hour. His recovery was destined to be almost as sudden as his disappearance, and was due directly to the tramp Alex had brought to Sunnyside. It seems the man was grateful for his release, and when he learned something of Elsie's whereabouts from another member of his fraternity, for it is a fraternity, he was prompt in letting us know. On Wednesday evening Mr. Jameson, who had been down at the Armstrong house trying to see Louise, and failing, was met near the gate at Sunnyside by an individual precisely as repulsive and unkempt as one Alex had captured. The man knew the detective, and he gave him a piece of dirty paper, on which were scrawled the words, "Is at City Hospital, Jonesville." The tramp who brought the paper pretended to know nothing, except this: the paper had been passed along from a hobo in Jonesville, who seemed to know the information would be valuable to us. Again the long-distance telephone came into requisition. Mr. Jameson called the hospital, while we crowded around him. And when there was no longer any doubt that it was Elsie, and that he would probably recover, we all laughed and cried together. I am sure I kissed Liddy, and I've had terrible moments since when I seem to remember kissing Mr. Jameson too in the excitement. Anyhow, by 11 o'clock that night Gertrude was on her way to Jonesville, 380 miles away, accompanied by Rosie. The domestic force was now down to Mary Ann and Liddy, with the under gardener's wife coming every day to help out. Fortunately, Warner and the detective were keeping Bachelor Hall in the lodge. Out of deference to Liddy, they washed their dishes once a day, and they concocted queer messes, according to their several abilities. They had one triumph, that they ate regularly for breakfast, and that clung to their clothes and their hair the rest of the day. It was bacon, hardtack, and onions fried together. They were almost pathetically grateful, however, I noticed, for an occasional broiled tenderloin. It was not until Gertrude and Rosie had gone and Sunnyside had settled down for the night, with Winters at the foot of the staircase, that Mr. Jameson broached the subject he had evidently planned before he came. "Miss Innes," he said, stopping me as I was about to go to my room upstairs, "how are your nerves tonight?" "I have none," I said happily. "With Elsie found, my troubles have gone." "I mean," he persisted, "do you feel as though you could go through with something rather unusual?" "The most unusual thing I can think of would be a peaceful night. But if anything is going to occur, don't dare to let me miss it." "Something is going to occur," he said, "and you're the only woman I can think of that I can take along." He looked at his watch. "Don't ask me any questions, Miss Innes. Put on heavy shoes and some old dark clothes, and make up your mind not to be surprised at anything." Liddy was sleeping the sleep of the just when I went upstairs, and I hunted out my things cautiously. The detective was waiting in the hall, and I was astonished to see Dr. Stewart with him. They were talking confidently together, but when I came down they ceased. There were a few preparations to be made, the logs to be gone over, Winters to be instructed as to renewed vigilance, and then, after extinguishing the hall light, we crept, in the darkness, through the front door and into the night. I asked no questions. I felt that they were doing me honor in making me one of the party, and I would show them I could be as silent as they. We went across the fields, passing through the woods that reached almost to the ruins of the stable, going over stiles now and then, and sometimes stepping over low fences. Once only somebody spoke, and then it was an emphatic bit of profanity from Dr. Stewart when he ran into a wire fence. We were joined at the end of 5 minutes by another man, who fell into step with the doctor silently. He carried something over his shoulder which I could not make out. In this way we walked for perhaps 20 minutes. I had lost all sense of direction. I merely stumbled along in silence, allowing Mr. Jameson to guide me this way or that as the path demanded. I hardly know what I expected. Once, when through a miscalculation I jumped a little short over a ditch and landed above my shoe-tops in the water and hose, I remember wondering if this were really I, and if I had ever tasted life until that summer. I walked along with the water sloshing in my boots, and I was actually cheerful. I remember whispering to Mr. Jameson that I had never seen the stars so lovely, and that it was a mistake, when the Lord had made night so beautiful, to sleep through it. The doctor was puffing somewhat when we finally came to a halt. I confess that just at that minute even Sunnyside seemed a cheerful spot. We had paused at the edge of a level cleared place, bordered all around with the primly trimmed evergreen trees. Between them I caught a glimpse of starlight shining down on rows of white headstones and an occasional more imposing monument, or towering shaft. In spite of myself, I drew my breath in sharply. We were on the edge of the Casanova churchyard. I saw now both the man who had joined the party and the implements he carried. It was Alex, armed with 2 long-handled spades. After the first shock of surprise, I flatter myself I was both cool and quiet. We went in single file between the rows of headstones, and although, when I found myself last, I had an instinctive desire to keep looking back for my shoulder, I found that, the first uneasiness past, a cemetery at night is much the same as any other country place, filled with vague shadows and unexpected noises. Once, indeed, but Mr. Jameson said it was an owl, and I tried to believe him. In the shadow of the Armstrong granite shaft we stopped. I think the doctor wanted to send me back. "It's no place for a woman," I heard him protesting angrily. But the detective said something about witnesses, and the doctor only came over and felt my pulse. "Anyhow, I don't believe you're any worse off here than you would be in that nightmare of a house," he said finally, and put his coat on the steps of the shaft for me to sit on. There is an air of finality about a grave. One watches the earth thrown in, with feeling that this is the end. Whatever has gone before, whatever is to come in eternity, that particular temple of the soul has been given back to the elements from which it came. Thus, there is a sense of desecration, of a reversal of the everlasting fitness of things, in resurrecting a body from its mother clay. And yet that night, in the Casanova churchyard, I sat quietly by, and watched Alex and Mr. Jameson steaming over their work, without a single qualm, except fear of detection. The doctor kept a keen lookout, but no one appeared. Once in a while he came over to me and gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "I never expected to come to this," he said once. "There's one thing sure. I'll not be suspected of complicity. A doctor is generally supposed to be a handier at burying folks than at digging them up." The uncanny moment came when Alex and Jameson tossed spades on the grass, and I confess I hid my face. There was a period of stress, I think, while the heavy coffin was being raised. I felt that my composure was going, and, for I fear I would shriek, I tried to think of something else. What time Gertrude would reach Alcy? Anything but grisly reality that lay just beyond me on the grass. And then I heard a low exclamation from the detective, and I felt the pressure of the doctor's fingers on my arm. "Now, Miss Innes," he said gently, "if you'll come over." I held on to him frantically, and somehow I got there and looked down. The lid of the casket had been raised, and the silver plate on it proved we had made no mistake. But the face that showed in the light of the lantern was a face I had never seen before. The man who lay before us was not Paul Armstrong. End of chapter 30.